For a long time, I noticed a pattern among guys that completely changed how I look at relationships. Most guys aren't actually looking for love. They are just searching for someone who makes them feel, for the very first time, like they actually matter to another human being. But that is exactly where the trap snaps shut. When you are empty inside, you don't attract the right person. Instead, you attract people who spot your emotional hunger and exploit it. It always starts the same way. First, you get a little bit of quiet attention. Then, it becomes a habit. Before you know it, it turns into a deep attachment. Suddenly, you wake up one day completely broken, staring at the ceiling, wondering where it all went wrong. You have to ask yourself, did you actually love them, or were you just running away from your own loneliness? The reality is that most guys spend all their time trying to learn how to attract women, but very few understand how dangerously easy it is to attract the wrong one. To bring the right person into your life, you have to change who you are from the inside out. And let me tell you, this evolution doesn't come from a new haircut or a fatter wallet. It comes from your mindset, your energy, and your presence. Have you ever noticed how some guys walk into a room and instantly command attention without saying a word or showing off, while other guys try way too hard and end up completely ignored? It is because attraction isn't a game of looks, it is a game of psychology. In this game, the person with the most power is always the one who controls himself. What I want to share with you today isn't just about turning heads. It is about recognizing who is actually good for your soul, and who is just feeding on your weakness. Years ago, I used to be that guy. I was ordinary, quiet, and possessed a good heart, but I made myself way too available. If a girl texted me, I replied instantly. If she called, I dropped everything. I genuinely believed that if I was just a nice guy, people would love me back. Instead, the exact opposite happened. People used to take advantage of me, and girls saw me as a convenient backup plan, never a priority, and certainly never someone they were captivated by. One night, completely exhausted, I asked my closest friend what was wrong with me. I told him I put in all this effort, yet nobody ever stayed. He looked me in the eye and said something that changed my life forever. "You've made yourself too cheap." That phrase echoed in my mind for weeks. It forced me to sit down and truly observe my own behavior. I finally realized that I wasn't offering genuine love. I was begging for approval. I was constantly trying to prove how good of a guy the first was, and I learned the hard way that there is nothing less attractive to a woman than a man trying to sell himself. That night, I stopped chasing. I started focusing entirely on understanding my own mind. Slowly, my habits shifted, my communication changed, and my inner energy transformed. Suddenly, the very same people who used to look right through me started paying attention, but this time, the dynamic had shifted. I wasn't desperate anymore. I didn't crave their validation, and that detachment is exactly what made me dangerous. This brought me to the first real secret. A man who loses his own identity just to keep a woman will never attract the right one. High-value women aren't impressed by a guy who showers them with desperate attention. They look for emotional stability. They notice how calm your mind is and how much respect you hold for yourself. Women don't just listen to your words, they feel your underlying frequency. If you are harboring fear, insecurity, or a hunger for validation, they can sense it instantly, no matter how smooth your lines are. Attraction isn't born from forced effort, it is born from your inner state of being. If your entire focus is locked onto impressing her, you have already placed yourself in a weak position. But when your focus is anchored in your own life, your goals, and your self-control, your frequency shifts. That is the exact energy that naturally pulls the right people in. I remember a guy at my gym who had it all on paper. He had a great physique, expensive clothes, and good looks. But internally, he was an absolute wreck of insecurity. He lived in a constant state of panic, obsessing over why she hadn't replied, why she was online but ignoring his message, or if she was talking to someone else. Slowly, his entire emotional well-being became completely dependent on a girl's behavior. This is the most dangerous position a man can put himself in, handing the remote control of his emotions to someone else. The moment you do that, the attraction dies. Women are naturally drawn to men who are emotionally stable, guys who don't react to every minor shift, who don't panic, and who are completely whole within their own universe. This doesn't mean becoming an emotionless robot, it just means refusing to become a slave to your impulses. The second secret I learned is that silence carries far more power than words. So many guys over-explain themselves, chase too hard, and remain completely available until their value evaporates. Humans inherently undervalue things that are cheap and easily accessible. Now, there is a massive difference between distance and ignorance. Some guys try to act cold or arrogant because they think an artificial attitude is attractive. But a high-quality woman isn't drawn to an ego. She is drawn to self-respect. When you stop trying to prove your worth, when you can sit comfortably in silence without fear, and when you stop begging for validation, a quiet power builds inside you. I once heard a woman tell her friend that she loved men who were genuinely busy because it meant they had a life of their own. Most guys miss this entirely. Attraction isn't about giving away all your attention, it is about creating curiosity. It is about making someone want to discover more about you. If you lay all your cards on the table immediately, the mystery vanishes, and the excitement dies along with it. Be authentic, but reveal yourself slowly. Not everyone earns the right to see every layer of who you are. The third secret is perhaps the most brutal. If you do not know how to be alone, you will always be a target for the wrong people. When you are terrified of your own company, you will accept any connection at any price, making you the easiest prey for emotional manipulation. I knew a guy who literally could not fall asleep without talking to a girl. He was terrified of the silence of his own mind, so he chose to ignore every single red flag. He blinked past the disrespect, the lies, and the manipulation, because his fear of abandonment was greater than his self-respect. When you operate out of fear, your judgment is entirely clouded. Eventually, she walked out anyway, leaving him utterly alone. At first, he thought it would destroy him, but as the months passed, he forced himself to sit in that quiet room, to think, and to observe. He finally realized he didn't need a girl. He was just running away from himself. That realization changes everything. The moment you become comfortable in your own skin, you instantly become unavailable to toxic people. Your energy stops being needy, the fear leaves your eyes, and your presence becomes a safe harbor rather than an anxious demand. A woman who values herself won't be fooled by an act. She will observe your deep-seated patterns. She watches how you react under immense pressure, how you handle a direct rejection, and whether your actions match the words coming out of your mouth. Looks might open the door, but behavior is what builds the bridge. Too many guys put on their best behavior at the start, only to slowly morph into possessive, insecure, and controlling partners, turning the relationship toxic. Their initial kindness wasn't natural, it was just a transaction to get the girl. But when you genuinely work on your character, your stability isn't a mask. It is who you are, and real stability is incredibly rare in today's world. Emotionally mature men stand out because they aren't loud or desperate, yet their presence carries undeniable weight. This leads directly into the fourth secret. You must master your reactions. The world doesn't just read your words, it reads how you react to discomfort. If a delayed text message can ruin your entire afternoon, you are emotionally dependent. If a minor misunderstanding throws you into hours of overthinking, you lack internal control. Attraction dies precisely where emotional control ends. I watched a mentor of mine handle this beautifully. His partner would occasionally test him with unnecessary drama or delayed responses, but he remained completely unbothered. No arguments, no begging, no overreactions. One day, she asked him straight out if he even cared. He looked at her calmly and said, "I care deeply, but I am not a servant to my emotions." She never forgot that line. Most people are swept away by their emotional currents, so when a man proves he can stand firm in a storm, he becomes rare. And rarity is the essence of attraction. People often mistake loud confidence for true security. Half the world is just performing confidence, while the other half makes you feel it. The guys who perform it are always demanding the spotlight, desperate to prove how special they are. But truly confident men feel no need to pitch themselves to the world. Their stillness does all the talking. This is the fifth secret. When you truly know your worth, you never feel the need to oversell yourself. I used to see guys who felt they had to be the entertainer in every conversation, trying way too hard to be funny or engaging just because they were terrified people would leave if the energy dropped. It is an exhausting way to live, and fake energy always runs out of gas. The moment you drop the desperation and just allow yourself to exist normally, speaking only when you have something meaningful to say, people actually start taking you seriously. Desperation lowers your value every single time. You need to understand that a woman with a vision cares far more about your direction than your current bank account. She wants to see where you are steering your life, how clear your focus is, and how disciplined you are with your ambitions. She isn't just looking at the man you are today, she is assessing the future you are building. She wants emotional safety and stability, things that tailored suits can never buy. Those traits are forged through self-discipline, a clear purpose, and consistency. A man who builds a solid daily rhythm, taking care of his body, locking into his work and protecting his peace, creates an undeniable aura. Discipline silently commands respect. When people see that you can govern yourself, they instinctively trust you to govern a relationship. But here is where a lot of guys make a fatal mistake. The moment they finally get the girl, they abandon their own kingdom. They stop going to the gym, they neglect their goals, and they make her the absolute center of their universe. Slowly, the very attraction that brought them together burns out. No one can maintain attraction for someone who completely erased their own identity. A healthy relationship is meant to be a beautiful addition to your life, not the entire definition of it. That is the sixth secret. Build a life so structurally sound that whether someone walks in or walks out, your foundation doesn't shake. That is true emotional strength. I remember watching a guy completely fall apart after a breakup, locking himself away and abandoning his future because his entire identity was tied to one person. The day he finally looked in the mirror and felt disgusted by his own weakness was the day he started rebuilding. He hit the gym, read, locked back into his purpose, and rediscovered self-respect. Months later, when his ex tried to come back, he was a completely different man. He wasn't starving for her attention anymore. True attraction peaks when someone realizes that while they are wanted in your life, you are entirely complete without them. Why do so many guys end up stuck in a cycle of toxic relationships? It is because they prioritize temporary feelings over consistent patterns. When you are emotionally desperate, your brain intentionally blinds you to red flags because you are starving for a connection, even if that connection is destroying you. An emotionally mature man operates differently. He steps back and observes consistency, respect, and character. A right partner won't destroy your peace of mind, she will protect it. If entering a relationship leaves you constantly anxious, hypervigilant, and losing your self-regard, that isn't love. That is an addiction, and while addictions are thrilling at the start, they always leave you hollowed out in the end. The seventh and deepest secret is this: true peace is the ultimate magnet. Most of the world is living in a state of chaotic noise, chasing clicks, begging for validation, and drowning in comparison. When you encounter someone who is genuinely calm inside, their energy hits differently. You don't feel pressure when you sit next to them. You don't leave conversations feeling drained. People are subconsciously desperate for that kind of peace. I remember a woman explaining why she left her ex, saying that even though he was a good guy, being with him felt like a full-time job of constant reassurance and managing his anxieties. Emotional instability will erode even the strongest foundations. If your emotional state is dictated by how someone else treats you today, you don't actually own yourself. Strong men face their loneliness head-on instead of sprinting away from it. They master the silence, they discover who they are, and their entire presence changes. The desperation leaves their eyes, the neediness fades from their voice, and attraction happens naturally. The right person won't just entertain you, she will challenge you to grow. True attraction isn't forced, and it cannot be bought. It is quietly built in the dark through your energy, your boundaries, and your uncompromising self-respect.